Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a horror thriller film, Devil. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with the Bible verse from 1 Peter 5.8. Then, Ramirez, the surveillance watchman, narrates his mother's tale about the devil taking a human form to roam the earth, searching for humans to punish their sins. It's also said that committing suicide paves the way for the devil to occur in the devil's meeting. A janitor polishes the inside floor of a skyscraper while listening to music. Just behind him is a truck, where a man plummets to death and crashes onto the truck's roof. Meanwhile, the detective eats breakfast with his sponsor in a dine-in. They discuss the detective learning to forgive the person responsible for killing his family. However, the detective disagrees because there are things in life that are beyond forgiveness. Afterward, the detective meets the partner to check on a recent incident. They visit a nearby two-story building to find a corpse holding a rosary on top of a truck. The detective is confident that the truck is located from a different place that only rolled onto the street and lands beside the two-story building. Inside the same skyscraper, 5 strangers gather into elevator 6. Those are the elderly woman, the salesman, the temporary watchman, the young woman, and the mechanic. A song plays in elevator 6 as they ascend. The floor number locator in the panel board doesn't show. Out of nowhere, elevator 6 stops midway. Meanwhile, Ramirez arrives with coffee for another watchman named Lustig inside the control room. Ramirez sits and notices elevator 6 is in inspection mode. Hence, Lustig calls the building engineer to check on elevator 6, who's about to fix a human-sized broken window glass on floor 35. In elevator 6, the elderly woman criticizes the skyscraper's quality, while the temporary watchman pushes the emergency button to alert his colleagues. Lustig radios the passengers from the control room to assure them they're fixing the problem. Lustig also requests the passengers to communicate via panel board. Unfortunately, the passengers can only hear the security radio but can't speak to them. Everyone in elevator 6 is annoyed, so the temporary watchman borrows the young woman's phone to call the front desk, but fails. The BGM returns, and the salesman attempts to uplift everyone's sour mood, but he only worsens it. The detective and the partner stumble outside upon glass shards just outside the skyscraper on the road. A janitor sweeps the glasses and tells the detective that there's a broken window. The detective immediately stops the janitor's cleaning and declares the broken glass as a crime scene. Luckily, the detective and the partner immediately detect and avoid the falling glass from the sky. Ramirez resumes narrating that the devil kills or hurts innocent people who intervene in punishing the trapped damned people. The building engineer reaches the rooftop and flips the power switch to search for a short in elevator 6 breaker. The lights flicker and the first blackout occurs, causing everyone to panic a bit. The light returns, and then the mechanic pushes the car's ceiling upward to open a hatch, revealing a space outside the car. In the control room, Ramirez is in shock upon hearing from Lustig that someone jumped off from floor 35. Afterward, Lustig comforts the passengers once more that they're doing everything to get them out. Meanwhile, inside elevator 6, the BGM returns, causing the mechanic's frustration to worsen. Simultaneously, the young woman suspects and warns the salesman behind her after feeling a hand had grabbed her back. The light flickers again in elevator 6, and Lustig immediately contacts the building engineer if he's fixing the lights, but the building engineer replies he's in the basement. Either way, the building engineer pulls the emergency lever to reset the power in elevator 6, but it still doesn't work. So he decides to return the roof and manually resets the car. While Lustig deals with the building engineer, Ramirez catches an ominous face appearing on the surveillance monitor for elevator 6. Right then, the second blackout occurs and everyone panics. The lights return, revealing the young woman on the ground with a bleeding bite mark on her back. Ramirez and Lustig watch them from the monitor and oblige the passengers' request to turn off the music. The music's off, and they notice the salesman's clothes and hands are bloody. The salesman defends himself, saying the young woman fell to him. Just then, this causes everyone to be suspicious of the salesman. The 2 surveillance watchmen decide to call the police upon seeing the young woman's wound. Coincidentally, the detective and the partner are nearby investigating the recent suicide. While waiting for the police's arrival, Ramirez presents the ominous face to Lustig, but he only sees it as a common mistake. However, Ramirez prays with his rosary, believing it's the devil. The mechanic and the temporary watchman attempt to open the car's door. The salesman tries to assist, but they only deny him. The detective arrives in the control room and reassures the passengers to calm down through radio. Afterward, he immediately commands his partner to call the elevator company, fire department, and find information about the temporary watchman. The detective then asks the passengers to reveal their driver's license on the camera for identification, but the letters are too small. So the detective and the partner search the sign and log sheet in the lobby, while Ramirez remains on watch in the control room. The light flickers in elevator 6 again, and the young woman sees a glimpse of everyone dead in the elevator. Suddenly, the wall mirrors shatter, the third blackout occurs, and everyone in the room panics. When the lights return, they find the salesman impaled with a glass shard on his jugular vein and dies. Ramirez immediately reports this to the detective, the partner, and Lustig, who's about to learn the temporary watchman's information. It turns out the temporary watchman is a thug with criminal records of numerous assaults. They all arrive in the control room, where the detective declares the incidents in elevator 6 a crime scene. Ramirez starts to panic, reminding everyone of the recent suicide, someone getting hurt, and someone dying out of nowhere. He tries to imply that the incidents occurring are called the Devil's Meeting, where the devil is amongst the people who torment the damned people on Earth before stealing them away. Lustig tries to calm down Ramirez, but he persistently convinces everyone that the devil is hiding among the passengers. The detective dismisses Ramirez's claim and scans the monitor. Upon scanning, the detective believes the passengers are far from being murderers. He then asks a volunteer to pick up the folded paper tucked inside the salesman's coat. The mechanic voluntarily takes the letter and shows the salesman's real name and Better Business Bureau's return address on floor 35. Inside elevator 6, everyone goes quiet upon realizing the police must be speculating who's the killer, while the 2 detectives and the 2 surveillance watchmen meet in the lobby with a firefighter who recently arrived. The detective then visits floor 35 to meet the woman officer about the suicide. She shows him the suicide note left in the office with an ending sentence, "I can hear the devil's footsteps draw near." She believes that suicide notes are either crazy or rational, but the suicide note in their hands is both. On a similar floor, the detective also visits the Better Business Bureau's clerk. The salesman scammed people, causing them to lose a lot of assets due to his Ponzi scheme. So the detective asks the clerk for the list scammed by the salesman. Meanwhile, the firefighters fail to pry open the elevator door, while the mechanic fails to climb out the hatch because the young woman thinks he's escaping. The mechanic even allows the temporary watchman to search him to prove his innocence. The detective returns to the control room and asks Lustig to show every incident in elevator 6 earlier. Just then, Ramirez shows the ominous face on the monitor, saying, "Everybody believes in the devil a little bit, even if guys like you don't." Suddenly, the detective brings out a coupon with a written note saying, "I'm so sorry." It's revealed that the detective's wife and son died in Bethlehem 5 years ago due to a hit and run. The killer left such a coupon on the crash site, but now the detective sarcastically says it's okay because the killer is sorry. The detective doesn't believe in the devil because he believes that people can also do bad things. The detective returns his attention to the footage and begins suspecting the young woman after watching how she acted as if someone grabbed her. Meanwhile, the building engineer tries descending into the stuck elevator, but its machine suddenly gets stuck. The chain connecting him to a wire breaks, leading the building engineer to plummet to his death. Lustig pleads with the building engineer to use the walkie-talkie. Still, the building engineer already crashes onto elevator 6 roof, causing the car to shake midair and the cable lights to fall. The detective arrives on the rooftop and sees the building engineer dead. He quickly orders the firefighters to break the wall on floor 21, which they promptly follow. The detective later returns to the control room and reviews the security footage of every passenger's arrival in the skyscraper. They learn that the elderly woman is a notable thief for openly stealing a lady's wallet in the lobby. After the elderly woman, the detective notices that the mechanic had entered the entrance with a duffel bag, but he doesn't have it anymore in the elevator. The detective is about to search for the bag, when suddenly elevator 6 light flickers again and blackouts for the 3rd time. When the lights return, the thief hangs dead through a light cable from the ceiling. Upon seeing the thief dead, the detective orders a lockdown on the whole building and gathers everyone in their offices to the lobby. Before leaving to follow the command, the partner asks for a shut-off valve to turn off before opening the wall on floor 21. Lustig suggests doing it and accompanies the partner outside the control room. Ramirez remains with the detectives, saying that there's a reason why they're the audience of the people trapped inside the elevator, indicating that the devil causes all this to happen. Meanwhile, an unidentified woman attempts to enter the building, but the entrance guard stops her. Ramirez narrates, "The devil kills the last person in front of the person they love the most." In elevator 6, the mechanic and the temporary watchman untangle the thief from the light cables. Afterward, the detective investigates the mechanic. He and the partner search for the duffel bag and find it hidden in the lobby bathroom. Inside the duffel bag are tools, making them suspect the mechanic more. In Elevator 6, the temporary watchman and the mechanic start fighting out of rising suspicions to one another as the killer. The young woman tells the temporary watchman to kill the mechanic to prevent further deaths, which he follows, causing a commotion inside. Luckily, the detective returns to the control room and successfully de-escalates the tension by ordering the remaining passengers to place their hands on the wall. Desperate for answers, the detective asks Ramirez for a way to save the passengers if the devil is indeed in their presence. Ramirez replies, they all die. Then the detective resumes his research for the passenger's identity. The young woman is in the building to meet with her lawyer, so the detectives head to the lobby and meet the young woman's lawyer. After their talk, the detective tries to contact the young woman's husband, but fails. Simultaneously, Lustig suddenly arrives in the lobby looking fried due to electrocution after successfully turning off the shut-off valve. The detective immediately disperses the gathering crowd and calls for the medics. In Elevator 6, the young woman removes her hands off the wall because of her aching wound. However, the mechanic tells her to return her hands to the wall. Just then, the detective learns the truth. The young woman actually called her lawyer for legal advice after her husband, who owns the building's security company, might have learned that she stole his inheritance money. Immediately, the detective and the partner rushes to the control room and claim the entire elevator incident is another Kensington sniper. The partner explains it's a crime that occurred before, when a husband killed strangers and his wife to appear his personal killing into a serial. The young woman's husband might have hired the temporary watchman to kill the young woman and had killed the rest to cover up the crime. However, everything changes when the fourth blackouts and the lights return to see the temporary watchman die with a broken neck. The mechanic and the young woman arm themselves with mirror shards. Still, the detective immediately eases the tension by telling them to hold accountability for their mistakes and learn to recover from them. However, the lights black out for the fifth time and the young woman's throat is slit. The mechanic attempts to stop the bleeding. Just then, they summon the unidentified woman to the control room, where she identifies the remaining passenger, the mechanic, as her fiancé. It turns out the mechanic comes here in the building for a job interview who hid his tools because he didn't want to bring them, and the fiancé visits the skyscraper to fetch him. Everyone realizes the mechanic did sign in, and the elderly woman is no one else but the devil. In Elevator 6, the devil, in the form of an elderly woman, confronts the mechanic for his life. The mechanic attempts to barter his life to save the young woman. The devil says, "I can't do that. Besides, do you think you are worthy of forgiveness?" The movie ends with the mechanic confessing and apologizing for fleeing from a hit-and-run 5 years ago in Bethlehem Pike. Thus, the detective learns that the mechanic is the one who should be blamed for his family's death. The devil becomes feeble because of the mechanic's repentance, causing the elevator to plunge several floors. In the end, the firefighters save the mechanic, the medics wheel out corpses, and the detective brings the mechanic into custody. The detective discloses that it's his family who died in the hit-and-run, and he surprisingly ends it with acceptance for the mechanic's apology. This is Daniel's CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.